Chosen one, listen carefully. Everything that has stood against you is about to lose its hold. I'll repeat it. Every obstacle, every opposition, every force that tried to block your rise is about to be stripped of power. You did not arrive here by accident. You did not stumble across this message by chance or curiosity. This moment was orchestrated with precision, far beyond human timing. The God who sees what happens behind closed doors has intentionally guided you here, so you could receive this word exactly when your spirit was ready to hold it without breaking. You are standing on the edge of a divine shift. A reversal is activating now. A movement that brings justice, elevation, and heaven-backed increase directly into your life. This word is for the one who endured betrayal without explanation, for the one who carried loss without retaliation, for the one who was treated unfairly but chose integrity anyway. You stayed faithful. You stayed honest. You didn't take shortcuts, even when others profited from your labor, your ideas, your money, or your reputation. You bore injustice quietly, trusting that heaven keeps the record even when the earth is silent. And that trust was not misplaced. Hear this clearly. When we speak of enemies, we are not only referring to people. We are talking about systems, resistance, and spiritual opposition that drained your energy, blocked your resources, and delayed your rise. Those forces are being confronted now. By the end of this message, the heaviness you've carried will begin to lift. Your clarity will return. Your faith will stabilize, and you will begin to see restoration and provision reposition themselves toward you. Stay with this message until the end. Let your faith and strength rebuild layer by layer. If this word resonates with your spirit, comment 777 as a sign of alignment and share the city or place you're watching from. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and help us reach 5,000 subscribers to continue sharing these messages. Because chosen one, divine alignment is moving, and it will not wait. Because divine justice doesn't hover in theory. It manifests exactly where you stand. Now understand this. The ones who took from you are not preparing apologies. They are not planning explanations. They are not quietly returning what they used and walking away unchanged. What is happening now goes far beyond repayment. What is unfolding is exposure, collapse, and correction. What they built through deception is losing its support. The structures that appeared secure were only standing because heaven allowed time to finish its work. That time has expired. There are seasons where loss feels senseless, where what you went through feels unnecessary, even cruel. But what happened to you was not random. It wasn't poor judgment. It wasn't weakness. There was intention behind it. There was awareness behind it. What was taken from you wasn't just material. It was time, momentum, peace, confidence, the ease you carried before learning how strategic some people can be. I need to be clear here, because clarity breaks shame. This wasn't miscommunication. It wasn't misunderstanding. It wasn't everyone doing their best. What occurred was calculated, and it targeted something far more valuable than money. It targeted what you carry. Some people can tolerate your success, but not your light. They're comfortable benefiting from you as long as you don't outgrow their shadow. The moment your awareness sharpened, the moment your presence gained weight, the moment your vision matured, resistance formed. What unsettled them wasn't your ambition. It was your anointing. You carry something that exposes manipulation, shortcuts, and false authority without you ever needing to speak. Some people steal because they know they can't compete. They borrow because they know they can't build. They sabotage because they can't replicate what flows naturally through you. I know this terrain. I know the confusion of watching someone advance, using what you labored for. I know the ache of seeing doors open for them while yours stayed closed. I know the quiet prayers asking, God, did I miss something? I know the nights where you replay conversations, wondering if you were too trusting, too generous, too patient. That questioning didn't come from foolishness. It came from integrity, trying to understand injustice. They didn't just take resources. They took years. They took emotional capacity. They took energy that should have been multiplying in your own life. And for a while, it looked like they escaped consequence. It looked like silence. But silence is not absence. Silence often means something lawful is happening in the unseen. There is a spiritual law that cannot be overridden. It cannot be delayed forever. It cannot be negotiated away. When someone interferes with what God has marked, they are not competing with you. They are entering a case with heaven. Justice doesn't always arrive quickly, but it always arrives precisely. God's stillness was not indifference. It was restraint. Evidence was being gathered. Patterns were being allowed to fully reveal themselves. Motives were being documented, not for your awareness, but for the court that actually governs outcomes. Sometimes God allows someone to rise higher than they should, only so the fall will be unmistakable and final. This is why what's coming won't feel chaotic. It will feel ordered, sudden, but correct. You won't need to explain it. You won't need to defend it. You'll recognize it by the peace that comes with it. There is an ancient pattern that explains this principle clearly. A powerful man once invested his influence and resources into building a structure meant to destroy a righteous one. He believed he was preparing an ending. In truth, he was constructing his own exposure. What looked like strategy was self-incrimination. What looked like dominance was simply delay before reversal. That same pattern is active now. The trap set for you didn't miss. It landed on the wrong person. Understand this. You were never meant to intervene. You were never meant to retaliate. You were never meant to correct the narrative by force. That restraint, even when it felt costly, preserved heaven's full legal authority to act. What's unfolding now isn't equal exchange. It's not balance. It's restoration with interest. When theft is exposed, the consequence isn't just return. It's loss of authority, loss of covering, loss of influence. What they carried through deception cannot survive once truth activates. Let me ground this in real life. This may look like a position suddenly opening that you were told would never be yours. It may look like conversations you were excluded from becoming spaces where your name is reconsidered. It may look like someone who blocked you being quietly removed. It may look like restructuring, alliances dissolving, doors shifting. You may never hear an apology. You may never receive a confession. But you will see alignment. And alignment speaks louder than words. What they held was never ownership. It was temporary access. That access is expiring. And when it does, you are not stepping into disorder. You are stepping onto prepared ground. This isn't about ego. It isn't about proving anything. It's about demonstration. When God restores, He does it in a way that leaves no confusion about who defended you. You are not being elevated to embarrass anyone. You are being elevated to restore order. A table is being prepared, not for spectacle, but for witness. Those who doubted your integrity will quietly adjust their language. Those who underestimated your endurance will rethink their conclusions. Those who mistook your silence for weakness will recognize maturity too late to benefit from it. And before we go further, this must be said with clarity and care. How you carry what comes next matters. Here is a completely rephrased continuation of your script. The meaning, authority, depth, and prophetic tone remain, but the language, rhythm, and structure are fresh and original, designed for strong YouTube retention and emotional impact. Justice does not give you permission to grow cold. Vindication does not excuse arrogance. The true measure of the chosen is not what happens during reversal. It is who you become after it. When the balance shifts, humility is what keeps you aligned. You are not being entrusted with restoration because you were flawless. You are being entrusted because you learned discipline under pressure. You learned how to remain pure in compromised environments. You learned how to wait without decaying on the inside. That is uncommon. That is why heaven is responding. What you are stepping into will not demand effort. It will require release. Release the urge to manage outcomes. Release the need to observe their collapse. Release the desire to narrate every step of the process. Your assignment now is simple but powerful. Remain open. Remain grounded. Remain available. Take a breath here, not as a pause, but as awareness. Something has already shifted. You can feel it in how this message settled. Not excitement, not adrenaline. Recognition. This is not hype. This is confirmation. And it is only the opening movement of a restoration that has already been authorized. There is a moment that follows injustice when the soul stops asking questions, not bitter, not desperate, just quietly tired of carrying burdens that were never meant to be yours. That moment is holy, because it is often the exact point where heaven begins acting without requesting your involvement. Chosen one, you reached that place. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped proving your integrity. You stopped chasing clarity from people who benefited from your uncertainty. And in that stillness, alignment activated. When striving ends, order begins. Understand this deeply. The delay was not because God needed more time. The delay was because you needed more authority. Authority is not handed out casually. It is forged through endurance, restraint, and obedience, especially when obedience feels unrewarded. What you endured trained you to carry what is coming without being distorted by it. Some of you wonder why the reversal didn't happen sooner, why it took so long, why so much had to be lost first. The answer is not punishment. The answer is capacity. If restoration had arrived too early, it would have overwhelmed you. If vindication had come before healing, it would have hardened you. The timing was mercy, even when it felt like silence. I remember a season in my own life where something I built was taken from me quietly. Professionally, legally, but deeply personal. On paper, it looked clean. In reality, it felt like theft wrapped in politeness. For a long time, nothing changed. No justice, no correction, no exposure. And I kept asking myself, did I hear God wrong? What I didn't realize was this. God wasn't fixing the situation. He was refining me. He was adjusting how I trusted, how I listened, how I released control. Then one day, without warning, alignment returned. Not because I fought harder, but because I stopped fighting entirely. Doors once locked by people opened without effort. Conversations I was never invited into started happening without my involvement. What I lost came back, but not in the same form. It returned multiplied, cleaner, and without the emotional cost tied to the original version. That is how divine justice operates. It doesn't always restore the same object. It restores position. Chosen one, what is returning to you is not just money or opportunity. It is standing. It is influence. It is voice. It is forward movement without residue. That is why this moment matters. If you measure it only in material terms, you will miss the scale of what is happening. There are laws that govern increase. One of them is this: nothing stolen remains concealed forever. Exposure is not revenge, it is consequence. And consequence does not require your effort, only alignment. Before anything obvious happens, you may notice subtle shifts. People speak differently around you. Decision makers hesitate before dismissing you. Opportunities appear without pressure. These are not coincidences. They are signals, indicators that the weight in the room has changed. There is another shift happening too, just as important. The grip the enemy had on your mind is loosening. Your thoughts are clearer. Your reactions are calmer. Your rest is deeper. That is not disengagement. That is healing. That is internal order being restored. I need to say this plainly. Some of what you lost will not return in its original form. Some relationships will remain closed. Some doors will stay shut. That is not loss. That is protection. Restoration does not mean returning to environments that permitted harm. It means being repositioned where harm cannot follow. The ones who took from you assumed silence meant safety. They mistook patience for permission. They believed lack of consequence meant immunity. That assumption is unraveling now, quietly, methodically, precisely. When God moves in justice, He does not announce it to the guilty. He reveals it to the aligned. That is why this message reached you, not them. You are being trained to receive without fear, without suspicion, without self-sabotage. There is a temptation at this stage to watch for signs of their fall, to wait for proof, to seek confirmation. Resist it. That focus belongs to the former season. The next season requires forward vision. What is behind you is being addressed. What is ahead of you needs your attention. Hear this clearly. You did not lose because you were weak. You lost because you were clean. You were not defeated. You were preserved. Preserved from becoming what harmed you. That preservation is why you are trusted with what is coming. When provision arrives through divine alignment, it feels different. It carries peace. It carries clarity. It does not demand compromise. It does not require constant defense. It replaces survival with stewardship. Some of you will see this as sudden financial release. Others as long-term stability replacing constant uncertainty. Others as influence returning without resistance. All of it is restoration. All of it is intentional. Do not rush. Acceleration does not mean chaos. It means precision. Each step ahead will feel unexpectedly calm. That calm is confirmation. You are not entering noise. You are entering order. And order is where multiplication lives. Stay present. Stay surrendered. Stay receptive. The shift is already active. And it is unfolding executii. The shift is already active. And it is unfolding exactly as designed. There is one more layer to this moment that many overlook. When restoration begins, it doesn't only change circumstances, it reveals truth. And truth can feel unsettling before it feels freeing. That is why some of you feel peace and unease at the same time. Peace because you know something has shifted. Unease because clarity is sharpening. And clarity changes everything. The return of what was taken also brings discernment about what must never have access to you again. This is not bitterness. This is wisdom. Wisdom is what remains when pain is processed instead of buried. You are no longer operating from innocence. You are operating from awareness. There were people who benefited from your generosity but ignored your boundaries. Systems that rewarded your output but dismissed your well-being. spaces that used your ideas without honoring your contribution. For a long time you stayed because you confused endurance with faithfulness. They are not the same. Faithfulness includes stewardship of your soul. I learned this the hard way. There was a time I believed silence was humility, when in truth, it was fear of disruption. I stayed where I was depleted because I thought leaving meant failure. But leaving was not failure. It was obedience. And obedience is what positioned me for everything that followed. Here is a fully rewritten, original continuation that preserves the meaning, spiritual authority, emotional depth, and YouTube cadence, while using new language, structure, and flow, so it feels fresh and authentic. What I didn't understand back then was this: God does not define success by how long you endure misalignment. He defines it by how quickly you respond when alignment changes. Chosen one, alignment has changed for you. That's why you feel less interested in explaining yourself, less motivated to persuade, less willing to negotiate your value. That isn't pride. That is authority settling into place. Authority doesn't announce itself. It doesn't argue. It simply occupies space without apology. As restoration continues, you may notice certain people becoming uneasy around you. Not because you transformed into someone else, but because they no longer have the same access they once did. Your clarity removes leverage. Your calm removes control. Your silence removes manipulation. And that is deeply uncomfortable for those who relied on your openness to benefit themselves. Their discomfort is not your burden. Something else is dissolving beneath the surface as well. The shame that tried to cling to your loss is fading. Shame always lies. It tells you that if something was taken, you must have earned the loss. That if you were passed over, you weren't enough. That if you were mistreated, you misjudged. But shame collapses when truth rises. And truth is rising now. What happened to you did not limit your future. It sharpened your discernment. That is why heaven can trust you with more now. Not because you became harder, but because you became clearer. Not because your compassion disappeared, but because you learned where it belongs and where it doesn't. There is a quiet but powerful transition happening inside you. You are shifting from survival thinking to stewardship thinking. Survival asks, how do I protect myself? Stewardship asks, what am I responsible for carrying? This matters because what is approaching requires care, not constant defense. When provision returns without healing, it reopens wounds. When influence returns without discernment, it recreates old cycles. But when restoration meets maturity, it multiplies without corruption. Chosen one, you did the internal work even when you didn't realize it. Every late night questioning your decisions, every moment you chose restraint instead of retaliation, every time you resisted bitterness, those were not empty moments. They were investments, and they are producing return. You may not recognize restoration immediately because it doesn't always arrive dramatically. Sometimes restoration looks like stability after chaos. Sometimes it looks like consistency after volatility. Sometimes it looks like breathing again without bracing for loss. Do not dismiss these signs. They are evidence that the atmosphere around your life has shifted. I want to speak to those of you who are afraid to hope again. Afraid that if you open your heart, something will be taken once more. That fear makes sense, but it does not belong in the next season. The answer to past loss is not closed hands. It is wiser stewardship. Open hands guided by discernment are powerful. God is not asking you to trust blindly. He is asking you to trust intelligently. As you move forward, you'll notice something else changing. Opportunities no longer feel rushed. The pressure to decide quickly is gone. In its place is clarity. Peace does not push. Peace confirms. If something demands compromise to be accessed, it is not restoration. If something requires secrecy to succeed, it is not alignment. What is coming to you will not require you to abandon your values. There is a reason the timing feels intentional. This is not a season for scrambling. This is a season for receiving. You may also notice your prayers changing. You're no longer asking God to fix everything. You're asking Him to order things. That distinction matters. Fixing assumes brokenness. Ordering assumes authority. You are not broken. You are being repositioned. Chosen one, there may be moments where you feel tempted to look back and measure how far others have fallen. Resist that. Comparison belongs to the previous order. What matters now is forward clarity. You are not being restored to prove anyone wrong. You are being restored to fulfill what was delayed, and fulfillment speaks without explanation. Let your heart remain soft. Let your boundaries remain firm. Let your trust be guided, not guarded by fear. This is how you carry what is returning without losing yourself again. Take another breath here. Feel the steadiness replacing tension. That steadiness is not temporary. It is the foundation of what is being built now. There is a responsibility attached to restoration, and few talk about it because it requires maturity. When heaven restores what was taken, it also restores choice. Choice in how you build next. Choice in who has access. Choice in whether old patterns repeat or new ones are established. Many stumble here, not from ingratitude, but from underestimating the weight of what they've been trusted with. The next season is not asking you to prove strength. It's asking you to practice discernment in calm conditions. You learned how to endure pressure. Now you are learning how to steward peace. There is a difference between being protected and being prepared. Protection keeps harm away. Preparation teaches you how to carry increase without inviting harm back in. What you are entering now is preparation, and preparation requires honesty with yourself. Some doors opening now will look familiar, resembling opportunities you once prayed for, dreamed of, or even lost, but they will feel different. No desperation, no rush, no fear of missing out. That's how you'll know they are aligned. Alignment doesn't hurry you. It anchors you. You are becoming less reactive and more responsive, less emotionally driven by outcomes, more grounded in discernment. That shift is not accidental. It is internal authority being restored before external authority appears. Authority always begins within. I've seen people receive restoration without this internal shift, and I've watched it overwhelm them. Not because the blessing was wrong, but because the timing was premature. You were spared. What felt like delay was insulation. God was protecting the version of you that would eventually need to carry this weight without breaking. There may be moments when you want to explain your story, to clarify what really happened, to correct misunderstandings. Truth matters, but not all truth needs your voice. Some truth is revealed by time, some by alignment, some by outcome. Let outcome speak where explanation once tried to survive. Chosen one, you no longer need to convince anyone of your worth. Your consistency will do that. Your stability will do that. Your peace will do that. You will also notice your tolerance for disorder shrinking. Less patience for confusion. Less flexibility with compromised environments. Less willingness to negotiate boundaries that once felt optional. This is not rigidity. This is clarity, and clarity is required for stewardship. The next level of your life will require fewer people, not more. Fewer commitments, not more. Fewer distractions, not more. Expansion doesn't always add. Sometimes it subtracts to make room. This is where discernment becomes practical. Who drains you after conversations? Who needs constant reassurance? Who pressures you to stay small so they can remain comfortable? These questions matter now, not out of judgment, but responsibility. I learned this when restoration returned quietly. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was subtle. And because it was subtle, it attracted attention quickly. People who once ignored me resurfaced. Opportunities that once felt impossible suddenly became accessible. And in that moment, I understood something clearly. Restoration is not just about receiving, it is about selecting. You are selecting now. Who hears your ideas before they're formed? Who sees your plans before they're complete? That choice will shape everything that follows. Chosen one, listen carefully. Who has access to your time now that your time is becoming valuable again will determine how sustainable this next season truly is. Not everyone who walked with you before is meant to walk with you now. Discernment is being restored. What betrayal dulled, clarity has sharpened. You are seeing clearly again. Trust that. Honor that. Do not override it just to appear kind. There will be moments when grief rises even as restoration unfolds. That does not mean you are regressing. Loss leaves an imprint, and healing does not erase memory. It reassigns meaning. Feel what comes without questioning your faith. You are not divided. You are human. What matters now is that you do not build your future while standing in the shadow of your past. You are no longer operating from lack. You are operating from sufficiency. That means you do not chase. You do not compete. You do not overextend. What belongs to you will align with you. And alignment carries peace, not circumstantial peace, but embodied peace. The kind that settles your nervous system. The kind that slows reactions and quiets urgency. If you are feeling that peace, even in small moments, recognize it. That is not numbness. That is safety returning. Safety is not something you earn. It is something you allow once trust is rebuilt within. You may notice your prayers changing. Less asking, less bargaining, more listening. That shift matters. Listening positions you to receive instruction, not just relief. And instruction sustains restoration long after emotion fades. You are not the same person who entered the loss. You are clearer, stronger, more grounded. That is why what is returning will stay. Do not rush this season. Do not test it by forcing outcomes. Let things unfold at their appointed pace. You are not behind. You are precisely on time. There is a quiet confidence forming now. It does not announce itself. It does not seek validation. It settles into your posture, your decisions, your rhythm. Once it settles, very little can shake it. This confidence comes from knowing you survived what was meant to break you, and you did not lose your integrity in the process. You did not harden your heart. You did not trade your soul for survival. That matters more than you realize, because the next season will require inner stability more than outer strength. Many think wealth is accumulation, but heaven understands wealth as flow. You were not resisting blessing in the last season. You were resisting stagnation. What is coming now is circulation of ideas, resources, influence. And flow only remains healthy through clean channels. You are a clean channel. That is why pruning was necessary, not as punishment, but preparation. Pruning makes room for fruit that can be sustained. You may notice something subtle but important. Reminders of the past no longer trigger you the same way. What once stirred anxiety now passes through you. That is not suppression. That is healing. Healing changes how memory behaves. The past no longer controls your body. And when your nervous system stabilizes, discernment sharpens. You can decline without guilt. You can say yes without fear. You can sense alignment without overthinking. This is authority expressing itself naturally. Understand this deeply. You do not owe access to anyone who benefited from your former version. You do not owe explanations to those who failed to protect you. You do not owe proximity to what no longer honors your growth. Freedom is not cutting people off aggressively. Freedom is no longer being pulled by what no longer fits. You are allowed to move forward quietly. Restoration is not meant to be consumed all at once. It is meant to be stewarded. That is why patience is returning, not forced patience, but the kind born from trust. Fear rushes, trust waits. Your relationship with time is changing. Less pressure, less comparison, less urgency. That shift means you are no longer measuring your worth by outcomes. You are measuring alignment by peace. Peace is the confirmation. You are also becoming more disciplined with your inner world. You stop certain thoughts before they spiral. That is not avoidance. That is protection. Discipline is not restriction. It is stewardship. As opportunity re-enters your life, old voices may try to resurface. Doubt, memory, fear of repetition. Those voices are not prophecy. They are echoes. And echoes lose power when you stop answering them. Keep moving. What is coming now comes with guidance. Subtle nudges to simplify, prepare, refine, release. Follow them. Heaven prepares before it promotes. Humility will protect increase in this season. Not self-diminishing humility, but grounded humility. Knowing that what you carry is stewarded, not owned. That posture keeps your heart clean and your hands open. You are not meant to hoard what is returning. You are meant to circulate it wisely.